Hi everyone, yasas que kalos tirtate to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're going to be making another classic siropyasto Greek dessert known as Samali. Siropyasto just means it's soaked in syrup once it's made, and Samali cake, which is what we're making today, is made with coarse semolina flour instead of an all-purpose flour, which gives it more of a hearty texture. It's so simple to make. You only need a big bowl and a whisk just to put this all together, no mixers or anything like that. It's so aromatic and delicious. Let's get started. We're going to begin by soaking the almonds. I have some whole almonds in a bowl here, and I'll pour some boiling hot water over them so that way the skin can come off easily. Just set it aside to cool completely. You could do this step a day ahead of time. Your texture will be better by soaking them in cold water. No need to do the boiling hot water. And just leave them overnight in the refrigerator, and the skin will come off, and they'll also separate really easily into halves. So set that aside, and now we're going to make the cake. We're going to begin by grinding up the mastica. Mastica, also known as mastic gum, is a resin, and it's sold in Middle Eastern and Mediterranean grocery stores. I'll also put a link where you can get it online in the comment section down below or in the description box. So we have to grind this up, and in order to grind this up, you have to put it in a food processor with some sugar, otherwise it'll stick to your blade. So add a half a teaspoon of mastica crystals into a food processor with some of the sugar. About 2 tablespoons of the sugar should be good enough, and pulse it until everything is grounded into a powder. It just looks like this. It's very powdery and not sticky this way. Set it aside, and we're going to combine our dry ingredients. So in the bowl over here, I have 2.5 cups of coarse semolina flour. This is the brand that I use. I love it, but any coarse semolina will do. If all you have is fine semolina, that'll work. The texture will be slightly different. I'll add a little pinch of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and the zest of a lemon. And then you could add the mastica mixture and whisk it all up and set it aside. Now we'll combine the wet ingredients. I like to measure the olive oil first, so that way the yogurt just slides out of the measuring cup. So in a big bowl, I'll add 3/4 of a cup of very light olive oil, 2 cups of Greek yogurt. I like to use full-fat Greek yogurt, but use whatever you have. A cup of water, 1.5 cups of granulated sugar, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Whisk that all up until it's nice and smooth, and then go ahead and add the dry ingredients a little bit at a time until they're all incorporated. I like to drizzle a little bit of oil in a 9 by 13 inch baking pan, but you can also bake this in a 10-inch round or 12-inch round baking tin. That works too. Just grease it really well with some olive oil, pour that batter into the pan and smooth it out, and then loosely cover it with a clean kitchen towel. Set it aside for 1 to 2 hours until that semolina flour absorbs all of the moisture of the liquids in the batter. That can take 1 hour or 2 hours depending. It might even take a little bit longer. I went in and I cut into it a little bit too soon. It was still very moist, and it's kind of good that I did that because I messed up with the cutting. So I'll just show my mistake here just in case you do it. Don't worry about it, because if you cut into it while the batter is still moist, it'll just bake out evenly. So you can just do that and set it aside. Peel the almonds, and if you can separate them into halves, that's fine. Otherwise, you can place an almond onto the center of each piece, and it's going to go in the oven and bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 40 to 45 minutes, or until it's golden all around the edges and it's fully set. While it's baking, you could go ahead and make the syrup. So in a saucepan, add 2.5 cups of granulated sugar, 2 cups of water, and the juice of half of a lemon. You could do half of an orange if you like orange flavor in this. Mix it all up and bring it to a boil. Once it boils and all of the sugar has dissolved, you can take it off of the heat, and you could stir in 2 teaspoons of rose water. If you have mastica extract, you could put that in there. Vanilla extract is really nice, but I'll go over all of the flavor substitutions later on, and set it aside. So as soon as the cake comes out of the oven, you could go ahead and cut it into slices again. I like to cut it into diamond slices, but you can do rectangles and make the slices as big or as small as you like. I toasted the remaining almonds in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes, and that way I can add some to the remaining pieces. Because some of the original almonds sank into the cake, I heated up the syrup a little bit again just to get it nice and hot, poured it all over the cake, and once the syrup was almost absorbed, I just went ahead and garnished the cake with some more almonds. You can use pistachios instead if you like. Let the syrup sit at room temperature until all of the syrup is absorbed for about an hour, and then it's ready to serve. Okay, so every time I'm recording a video and I make a mistake, I kind of get happy because I want to keep it in there because I know I'm not the only one that makes mistakes while baking. So I didn't wait long enough for the semolina to kind of dry up. The batter should be a little bit drier. I was in a hurry to finish up this video, so I went ahead and I sliced into it. Didn't even slice into it correctly, which is kind of good because when it bakes like that, all of the markings are gone. All you're left with is the almond pieces, and that's totally fine. So once it comes out of the oven, you could go ahead and score it again. But to keep that from happening, just keep it out until it pretty much dries up, and you could just slice right through it. You'll get beautiful slices because once you slice into it after it's done, it'll still look good, but it's a little bit rougher looking, not as smooth as it could be. But you can fix it once it comes out of the oven anyway. This is one of the few syrup-based desserts that you use hot syrup on a hot cake. Usually you have to cool down the syrup, but you need the syrup to be hot for this cake, so that way the semolina gets nice and moist after it absorbs it. So just keep that in mind. It makes it so much easier because you could just whip up the syrup while the cake is baking and just heat it through as soon as it comes out of the oven. Just pour it on top. Another thing I want to say, not everyone is a fan of mastica, which is mastic gum, or rosewater desserts. Some of my kids don't really like them, so you can swap out those flavors for vanilla. You can put a cinnamon stick in the syrup, leave the mastica out completely if you don't like it. It does have a little bit of a stronger, fresher flavor. If you've had it, you know what I'm talking about. Rosewater also is another one of those flavors that's aromatic, but not everyone likes their dessert or food to taste like flowers, if you know what I mean. So totally leave it out. It'll still be delicious. You could substitute vanilla extract. You can add orange juice to your syrup instead of the lemon juice. You could add some more orange zest into the cake and more vanilla. You could even put some cinnamon into the cake to give it more of like an autumn warmer flavor. It's so good. I'll put all of the options in the blog post. It's so much easier to list them on there because I can go on and on with variations of these flavors. I can go on and on forever. But I'll put it all in the blog post. Head on over there to print this recipe out. But let's do the taste test first. It smells so good. You slice right into it and it's so moist. My goodness. The inside melts in your mouth. The outside of the cake is toasted and slightly crisp. It is the perfect combination of flavors. You can top this with some ice cream. In Greece, a common combination is kaimaki ice cream over this cake. It's so good. Mascarpone cheese goes lovely with this because the cake is sweet. Mascarpone is kind of naturally sweet and so creamy. It's the perfect balance to serve on top of this. If you don't like almonds, you can do crushed pistachios on top. Again, I'll put all those options on the blog post, dimitrasdishes.com. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes, us.